Well, Ty, since we saw you last summer, you have now become an Emmy winner. Take us back to that night. And let's start with the first category of the whole evening. Your co-star, your wife, Julie Bowen wins. What was that moment like before your category even came up?
Ty Burrell, my TV husband, who helps me manage my fear on a daily basis and makes Claire Dunphy possible.
It was kind of, I think, the beginning of it feeling sort of surreal, you know, because I think in a weird way we're so close now that it was like having a family member, you know, have that happen to them. So it was, I mean, it was just so excited, but it was like almost like being that excited for like your sister or something. So that was surreal. And then honestly, when my name got announced, I don't remember much. Like, it's enough of I think, as much as, I mean, you know, it's just, I guess, enough of like a sort of a daydream thing, that it just was sort of like a blur. I suppose maybe just from adrenaline or whatever. I'd love to think, you know, that I was cooler than that. That somehow it was just, you know, just be very mellow, easygoing, in control sort of situation. But I think I actually was. It really kind of like took my excitometer into the red and then broke it completely. But yeah, so it was incredible. It was just an incredible night. I'll remember that night, I think, forever, just as being. It's just, I think, for being so joyful. It just was so much celebration and so many people around us that we love, and it was really cool.
Ty Burrell!
Thank you so much to the Academy for this honor. Thank you so much to Fox and ABC for giving me this job. And I would say, Dad, just think of me as a very masculine lady. And he would say, I do, son. I do. Thank you very much.
And it was such a highly anticipated category because it was so competitive, as you know. And then when you won, you gave such a lovely speech. And I mean, just in passing, we spoke to Joel McHale last week, and we asked him a question like, "What kind of speech would you give if you won an Emmy?" And he said something kind of like what Ty Burrell did.
Ty Burrell's speech last year was one of the greatest Emmy or awards acceptance speeches I've ever seen. It was so funny and really and poignant. It was perfect.
Well, that means a lot coming from him. I guess, you know, my dad, I mean, that's just the reality is that my dad wasn't around when I started performing. I started basically, although he knew I was a ham and that, you know, he had kind of encouraged me to go down that road in the past, but it just hadn't happened when he was alive. And, it just seemed like the culmination of enough of a culmination, even though it really isn't, but it was enough of a culmination. I didn't know if I'd have that forum again or that format to really talk about my dad in a way.
Well, when you got back to the set a day or two later for production, what was that like around all the cast and crew and everything?
Great. I mean, we've had like such a good experience with our crew. You know, our crew has just been so supportive of us, and you know, every time when we come back from something like that, it's just been a really warm atmosphere, and you know, I'm sure probably people get sick of hearing it, but we're in a situation where it is kind of a love fest, where we hang out with our writers when we can. I mean, not every night, but we really love our writers, and we like to socialize with them, and a lot of our crew, and you know, we really get along with each other. So it's really a fun kind of homecoming.
Yeah, and what's really cool, especially for you guys at the moment, is on that Emmy night Modern Family won everything that it was nominated for. You guys won at the Golden Globes for the first time. Then you won another SAG. And so it just looks like the show is just going to keep on winning because, the quality is still there. It's still so well respected. So is there a concern that it all might end abruptly, or are you just kind of enjoying it at the moment?
Well, I'm I don't know what the word is. I'm not pessimistic by nature, but I'm definitely jumpy after being an actor for 20 years now. Letting go and just accepting that I have a stable job is a very strange thing for me to try to do. Although, having 3 years, you can, I feel like as long as our writers are happy, we're going to have the same consistency. And that's the way I felt from the beginning. I feel like our pilot was so realized because we had Chris and Steve writing the pilot. They're just great writers that have been around forever. And now the same thing is true, I think, about the consistency of the show, which I marvel at. And I marvel at them, really. I'm just I'm just kind of like wowed by how they do it over and over again. And luckily for us, there's a little bit of development with the writers. There are writers that have some other side deals and stuff, and we completely understand that. That's to be expected, but they still want to be on the show, so it's been really great. And I think that's just kind of the key to the future, especially with the kid actors that we have that are so great that you can really see the show putting more weight on them as it goes on if the writing is as strong as it has been, and I think it will be. I hope.
Well, for this third season, you in particular have had a lot of guest stars and interacting with your character. You got to reteam with Josh Gad, who you used to co-star with, and you had Greg Kinnear, and you had Philip Baker Hall, and in our prediction center right now, Ellen Barkin is leading the guest actress predictions. What was it like? What's it like for you when you get the call sheet and you see a particular guest star is going to be in your scenes that given week?
I get really excited, The Ellen Barkin thing was just perfect casting. That's the thing. That's the key too. That we're into that. We're after having done it for a while. That everybody's wanting to make sure the casting is right. Yeah. More than the name, It's become a thing that we're putting a lot of focus onto now, as we get into the show a little bit, into our, what next year would be our fourth season, but just wanting to make sure that the show maintains its reality. But Ellen Barkin was the perfect person for that part. I mean, regardless of being Ellen Barkin. So, that was really exciting because I felt like that was perfect. Josh Gad is a friend of mine. We did Back to You together, and Greg Kinnear is just one of the nicest guys ever. I loved working with him. That was really, really cool to work with somebody who's been around for a while, but is still clearly just such a good person and doesn't take himself too seriously. I mean, not that should be that shocking, but he was really cool.
So heading into May, last few episodes, last few episodes of season 3, can you turn your mind back to the season and perhaps any particular highlights for you so far?
I would say though that this is kind of a weird highlight, but the weird highlight was doing the last 4 or 5 episodes and feeling like we were still doing the same show, because I guess I was a little like, how do we hold up after 3 years and at the end of 24 episodes with those writers? So that was a highlight for me. It's just going to work the last month or so and feeling like, wow, this script is better. I mean, they're just getting better. But I really like all the physical stuff personally. So I loved doing I'm getting these weird, crazy life experiences from being on the show, like trapezing and tightrope walking and just really fun, and all of the roller coasters at Disneyland, and that's always surrounded by great writing. So I get to go and have these like, little boy, sort of daydreaming experiences and get paid for it. So it's pretty good.
Well, you better than anybody would know at some point when you get nominated in July, you're going to have to turn in an episode. Have you thought about yet which one that might be this season?
I haven't. I really haven't yet. I think I took your guys' advice last year, if I remember correctly.
Well, the one that I don't know how many people told you to take that episode, but we were certainly two of the ones that told you to take that one. So it worked out good for you.
I heard that from a couple of other people as well.
Good. It was a good choice.
We were sort of leaning toward Egg Drop for you this year, unless you got something in May that we haven't seen.
Yeah.
In Egg Drop, that's the one where you're doing the seminar.
The sixth key is the key to the new home that you purchased below market using the simple principles that you learned here today, but not so simple that you don't still need the professional services of Woosnam, Keneally, and Dunphy. Thank you for coming.
It felt very much like a Keystone Cop sort of thing, like where I really got to feel like an old-timey comedian.
Yeah.
All the spinning plates and trying to get everything going. It was really fun.
Yeah. And you're playing off Sofia Vergara, which is not something that you normally do very often. Really, it was a real highlight of the season, I think.
Mental note.
The other one
we had some other good ones too. Lifetime Supply was the one where you're waiting on the doctor's news.
Yeah. Hold on one second. He's calling about a real estate listing. I'm fine.
I know.
Yesterday, you said you'd call if something was wrong. Then you called. Then you disappeared. That is the most irresponsible, unprofessional thing I've ever heard of in my entire life. And do you have anyone to represent you in the sale of your current house?
That's great.
I just love the moment at First Christmas where you get tasered. That's very funny.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, that's awesome. Thank you for that. I mean, it's so crazy to even, it's just funny. Like, it's so crazy to even be in that situation. And honestly, to be on a show where when you bring up those particular episodes, to be in a show where I'm lucky enough that my recollection of them is just totally blissful. Like every one that you brought up was just so much fun to do. I feel really lucky.
I mean, you've got an abundance of riches to choose from, so that's a really good problem to have. So let's just see what happens at the end of May when you've got everything in the can, and then you can make a proper decision. But before we go, there's something that I wanted to ask you. It's really a two-part question, if we can handle that today. I always wanted to know what you find really funny, given that you make so many people laugh. What do you actually find funny with other comedians, and what influences have you had in the past just for your work in general?
I mean, it's probably what were the major influences for a lot of people my age. I'm 44, so for me, Steve Martin, I'm kind of answering both at once, so I hope I'm not cheating, but Steve Martin was kind of basically my first introduction, I guess, to irony. I had listened before then. I had listened to a lot of old comedy albums of my grandpa's. He had one of those, like, it was basically like a huge piece of furniture that had a tiny turntable in it when the technology was so big, like the original IBM computers. It was like this giant thing with that all housed a thing this big for a radio, for a record player. Yeah, exactly. But I was listening to Bob Newhart and Jonathan Winters and just a lot of older a lot of older, Bob and Ray, older comedians. Actually, Bob and Ray is interesting because Chris Elliott became somebody who influenced me a lot. So that whole comedy family chain ended up just really having a huge impact on, I guess, what I thought was funny. But Steve Martin for sure, and Richard Pryor. And then, although it's not something that I feel like I could ever do because it's so sort of brave, I really like I admire all of the comedians that are kind of digging really deep, like Richard Pryor and George Carlin and Louis C.K. and people in that vein of comedy is really, it's very, and Patrice O'Neill, who just passed away last year. Just comedians who are, I really like a whole range of comedy, and I can enjoy a lot of different types of comedians, stand-up comedians, but that's a really cool, that lineage is, I think, a really cool lineage and pretty exciting to watch.
Yeah, I like, Steve Martin could be your uncle on the show. We could put the word out there. He could be Fred Willard's brother. I could see that.
I would have an aneurysm. I'd be so excited. He's made some TV appearances, but I'm not holding my breath for it because I know he's got plenty on his plate and may not even watch the show. But that's definitely a daydream.
Well, that reminds me, Sophia hosted SNL a few weeks ago, and I'd love to get your take on that. But we want you to host SNL. You would be perfect on that show, especially if you were a Steve Martin fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely another daydream. It would be amazing. It'd be incredible. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but it's definitely, I think most people in my, well, not even just my age group, but in my position, that's when I poll, an informal poll of my friends, and it's pretty much across the board, sort of like the pinnacle life experience for anybody, even just a comedy nerd, which is more what I am. I don't really consider myself a comedian, but being an actor who loves comedy, I mean, that's just a total daydream. And to answer your first question, I thought Sophia was amazing.
Yeah.
I thought she did such a good job. She's just so game, and, as is Julie actually on our show. Anybody on our show, I think, would do really well. But, it was kind of cool because I think Sophia, people might think that, I don't know, that maybe because she's so pretty or something that she wouldn't go for it. But she is a gamer. She's a total gamer. I wasn't surprised, but it was thrilling to watch. I mean, I watched it like it was, I don't know, like it was the Super Bowl or something, or if my, actually I watched it like if one of my good friends was hosting Saturday Night Live, which she was. So, yeah, it was cool.